Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Trek Canon Midnight Edition. Now, it's been a while since we didn't had a Midnight Edition, and I'm glad to be able to have the time and opportunity to get back to something that I really love. This is one of the staples of my early Trek canoning, or I should say, video podcasting, or whatever it is that this is. But it's nice to have the time to be able to sit back down and just share some thoughts about some different aspects of Star Trek that we can all talk about and kind of get into and kind of maybe maybe chat about like we like to do. So this particular episode is basically going to be revolving around just some unanswered things in episodes and some kind of loophole, plot twists and or plot things that never were continued or never were addressed after, or interesting concepts that should have been expanded upon. All right. So the reason that this came up was because I was I was reminded of Lieutenant Sam Kirk and the episode Operation Annihilate, and so I guess we'll start with that. So in the episode Operation Annihilate, what was going on is that the Enterprise was basically going to go to this particular world where it was a colony that was set up, a nice city and everything. It was supposed to be a really big city, and it was nice little Starfleet colony. I mean Federation colony. One of the members of this colony, one of the administrators of this colony, was Sam Kirk, and not only did Kirk was excited to go to the planet, but he was excited to see his brother. But when they got there, the whole planet and everybody like that was basically wiped out or being controlled by these alien creatures. All right. Through investigation, we find out that these alien creatures are basically parts of a brain. All right. They made up of parts of they like gigantic neurons. All right, and they attach themselves to people and they override their brain systems and take them over. Now, the thing is that in this episode, where did these things come from? Did they swarm to the planet? Did they get brought there? Was this, what was the deal with this particular species, evasive species? And it was something that I wish that they would have expanded upon in Star Trek afterwards, okay, because that's it's pretty interesting and daily if you think about it. Now there have been many times where there have been alien species or bacteria or macroviruses or something like that that would come and start decimating planets and everything like that, but I think that the very fact that these things operated on a collective, right, like I said, it was a type of brain, gave them more uh, gave it more depth, gave it more sinister, connotation to it. So, that was one of them. Now, another one of the things that came to mind was, I don't know if you guys remember the episode Immunity Syndrome. And in Immunity Syndrome, basically, they find out that through the death of a bunch of Vulcans on his ship, they find out that it's this basically big, gigantic amoeba or single-celled organism running around absorbing the life energies from systems. That's gigantic. And if you think about it, and it came from outside our galaxy. Now, if you think about it, if is this thing part of a larger organism? And it gives you the idea that it is in this episode because it was absorbing all this energy because it was going through the process of mitosis, cellular division, and what would that thing have grown into? What would be the end result entity or creature that that thing would have divided into and became? What type of molecule? Like, think about that. That would mean it would be the end of everything in our galaxy if that thing was allowed to continue. So another one of the things that switching series, if you think about the episode, say Unity and Voyager, all right, and I reference this episode a lot because the concept of this episode was pretty fascinating to me. And they had so much potential to continue on with, where this would have came from. If you guys remember in the episode Unity, we're introduced to the offshoot of the collective called the Cooperative. And I wish that they would have expanded upon them or had them inside the series later, because that would have been great. Now I know what people thinking. Y'all thinking, hey, he probably rolling up something bad. He's not rolling up nothing bad. First of all, it ain't nothing bad about nothing bad anyway. But, we just sitting out here talking. We just doing a normal video, chatting about things that we all love. Now, like I was saying in Unity, we come across the Cooperative, and that concept alone was pretty cool. In hindsight, it seems like they were kind of trying to do something like that with the episode Descent 1 and 2, where Lore had taken over the collective, and after Lore was relieved of command, it was kind of expected that these Borg would fall under Hugh, and Hugh would basically lead a new type of collective or a new type of free Borg. And it was something that they kind of tried to do in the first season of Picard, but it was one of my problem kids. I ain't gonna say was. It's my problem kid. Now, another one of the Next Generation episodes that really introduced a really cool concept and never expanded upon it was what was the name of the episode? It was called Emergence, I believe. And as always, I'll put the episode numbers and everything like that. Oh, wait a minute, man. This is a midnight edition, man. We ain't talking about nothing like that. We just talking about stuff. We just talking, right? We just talking. But anyway, the episode Emergence. And what ends up happening in that is that the main computer of the Enterprise had accumulated so much information that it gained sanctions. And this sanctions was consolidated into a life form that ends up flying away from the Enterprise. And they never said anything about that. Like, think of the repercussions of, like if you was to expand upon it, think of the repercussions. Is every starship able to create a life form like this? Does every starship have the capabilities of doing something like this? What are the ethics of releasing these types of life forms into the galaxy? You don't know what they're going to do. You don't know how they're going to represent the Federation. The only thing you can think of is, okay, well, we represented the values of Starfleet well, and so the entity that our ship births should do that the same. But what about ships that doesn't really represent those Starfleet values well? Think about the what was it, Captain Ransom from Voyager. All right, think about, like, after the events of what he was doing with those species to get back home, his ship decided to get a consciousness, and that was birth. How would that represent Starfleet well? I mean, it was just, if you think about Starfleet, they got to a point to whereas they really have to control what they do with their technology. Their holodecks are able to create life forms. You know what I mean? Sentient life forms. Think of Moriarty. Their starships are able to create sentient life forms. You know what I mean? Like I said, just think about the episode Emergence. So think about what was it? The episode Threshold. Now, in Threshold, of course, I've talked about that when I did my video on the effects of Warp 10. It was a short little video where I talked about Warp 10 and everything that happened, and not in the episode, but just the theory of Warp 10 and what that would imply and how they as far as how they described it in the episode. But in this, what I'm describing as far as from Threshold is they left kids on the planet, little baby salamanders. You know what I'm saying? Like, first of all, it's very irresponsible because you introduced a whole new life form that was kids that now has no parents, no way to survive, none of that. Like, did they starve to death? We know they don't probably eat the food that's running around on that planet. They was having fun in the water, we guess, but because they looked amphibious. But now I do know that most life forms don't really lay or have their kids in an area or something like that, instinctively, that they're not able to support them, but they flying around in space, you know what I'm saying? So, and they salamanders, you wouldn't think that they thinking through things very well, you know? So, another thing, like, you remember the episode Deep Space Nine, Jem'Hadar, the episode Jem'Hadar. It was one of the first episodes where we meet a Vorta, all right? And I think her name was Laris. Now, the thing is this. When we first are introduced to the Vorta, Laris has a particular skill, as Liam Neeson says. I have that particular skill set. But they're able to use telekinetic blasts and telekinetic shields and stuff like that, you know? And afterwards, never again did we see anything. You know, come to think of it, never again after that, I don't believe we've seen a female Vorta. So maybe that was something only female Vorta are capable of. But I know Wayun 1 through 6 would have had really a lot of really good uses for that telekinetic ability. You know, another episode that kind of really had me thinking, you know, like what's if you remember the episode Interface, you know, where Geordi LaForge was hooked up to that probe thing with the high-speed Oculus VR bodysuit. Anyway, and he thought that he was communicating with his mother, that just so happens to be the ship that he was trying to search for, um, because it was missing. What was going on with that? In that episode, it was never really clear if that was a life form on the planet, if that was something that Geordi was experiencing mentally. You know, they never really, speaking of mental things, all of the stuff that the crew go through, you would think that the job of a counselor would be full time, like straight up all the time. Like, I would think everybody would be just as tripped out as Lieutenant Barkley would be. You know what I mean? Like, that would be tripped out. Now, I think, you know, I don't want this video to go too long, but I think probably the last thing that was on my mind was from the episode 1 from Voyager. Now, we could talk a lot about, you know, why didn't the Borg just, since they have time capabilities and they don't give a damn about the temporal war, and that's, anyway, but they don't really give a damn about the temporal war, rules of temporal, you know, interference. Why didn't they go back and just give themselves the technology to make their own their own super advanced? They could be their, you know, I forget what the type of paradox is, but they could keep being their own evolution. You know what I mean? So what happened to one's body? Because just because the Borg died, we know that they either self-destruct or they're or parts of them are collected before they self-destruct. Why, you know, just because one died, you wouldn't think that the collective would have stopped trying to come after Voyager. They would have came after Voyager even if they totally incinerated one, because Voyager has the data and the scans and everything of one. You know what I mean? So, and they have the mobile emitter, which was responsible for making one. So, by the way, one was such a cool dude, man. You know, that hurt my heart at the end of the episode. One was just awesome. But, you know, what do you guys think of some of the, you know, some open plot holes and dead end plots and everything, and things and episodes where they introduced a concept or an idea or an alien or a thought process that that was really interesting, that they never really expanded upon, that they never really took to the next level, that no other writer, you know, grabbed a hold of and was like, hey, you know what? Sorry. That no other writer was like, you know what? This is what we finna, you know, that was outstanding concept. Let's continue with this, you know? So tell me what you guys think. You know, what did you guys think of some of those things? Put them down in the comments. Let's talk about some of the ideas that I've shared with you guys in this particular video. And as always, peace, recycle, and say to whales, you guys be cool.